This area, with hectares and hectares of grassland, has been reserved as the North Rwenzori Central Forest Reserve. The National Forestry Authority plans to plant trees in 2,000 hectares out of the 3,665 hectares of the reserve. So far, the authority has planted 1,400 hectares and intends to put down 600 more between September and October this year to complete the 2,000 mark. At a time, the land just had grass. Encroachers planted crops and grazed their animals on it, and some had even built here. However, they willingly moved when the plan was unveiled, but not without some benefits.
We are still negotiating an agreement where they will get land for themselves to plant 150 hectares, and after they have harvested, of course, all the money will go to their pockets. NFA or the World Bank will help them by providing them with planting materials.
Encroachment is one of the major threats to many forests countrywide. The encroachers' untamed desire has been mainly fueled by lack of knowledge and outright rebellion, knowing that the trees are planted on vast pieces of land that they thought they could put to better use. It has been argued that conservation without local participation is doomed to fail. Now, whether or not a community participates in this process often depends on factors like their level of education and interest in the conservation. The National Forestry Authority and government in general need to educate the masses on the need to conserve the forests.
And in that way, we expect then a participatory planning. And that is one of the achievements we have got. Now in CFM, we are trying to plan with the NFA to plan for the forest.
The Forestry Authority is optimistic that by involving local communities in this process, they will appreciate the use of forests and see the danger of encroachment. The over 300 former encroachers have now formed an association, the Rwenzori Mountain Farmers Association. They argue that because of the many constraints, they had no choice but to encroach on the forests. But with the 150 hectares they were given, the people are now more inclined to protect the forests since they see the natural resource as their own. Most of the people working on this project are indigenous Bakonjo and Batoro, who now have a steady source of income from it. But the question is, for how long? This is especially so because at the end of this year, the World Bank, which had injected $1.5 million, which is approximately 3 billion shillings, into the project, will close its funding taps. The biggest threat for most of our grown forests is either encroachment or extinction, as people will cut down trees for various reasons. The biggest threat, though, for the young forests that are just being planted is whether the government or the National Forestry Authority will be able to sustain them. With so much already invested in this project, the authorities can only hope that the World Bank renews its funding. Pine trees need at least 5 years in the ground, and it is only then that they can be left to fend for themselves. Before then, it is easy for weeds to suppress them and block their light.
So the future of the trees we are planting, we don't know, because if the project ends, I don't know how they will be maintained.
That bush can come back and override our trees. Therefore, the government and other responsible bodies should put in more effort to care for the plantation that has been grown.
And as we later realize, these pine trees need continuous maintenance. Pine belong to the evergreen family, which means the trees don't lose their leaves like deciduous trees do. The tree planting process starts with seedlings in the nursery bed. Pine trees, which are the focus here, need 4 months in the nursery before they can be planted. There are about 300,000 seedlings here. The land is cleared, the bushes cut down and the grass burnt, and then the cleared ground is then lined, marked and peated. Thereafter, the seedlings are then taken for planting. Normally, pine trees are spaced 3 by 3 meters, so in 1 hectare, at least 1,111 seedlings can be planted.
After 4 years, you prune actually to 2 meters height. Then around 5 to 7 years, you have to do actually thinning. You remove actually the weak ones so that you leave only healthy trees to continue growing to maturity. So there's going to be actually those intervals of thinning.
The Forestry Authority hopes to reap big from this venture. Besides all the other benefits that come with forests, such as tourism, one of the key objectives was to absorb carbon from the atmosphere that will ultimately earn Uganda income through carbon trade.
We expect that at the end of the 20 years, the plantation which we shall have established here will have brought in around 600 tons of carbon. And through carbon credits, sale of carbon credits, we hope to gain some money on top of timber and everything.
$4 million is expected from the project, but before then, NFA has a number of fears. Transport to the forest is difficult. Those working in the plantation have to travel through very hilly areas, and many of the employees who might be used to specialized climates find it hard climbing the hills. It therefore makes their labor expensive. The authorities say the climate is not favorable. The rains do not fall as often as they would like. Because some communities still live near the forests, their domestic animals will often stray into the young forest and eat the shoot of the trees, thereby hindering their growth. And there is the ever-present fear of fire. Pine trees are highly susceptible to fire. This means the local people who will most likely start fires for one reason or another must be closely watched, and this is no mean task. Josephine Karungi, EcoTalk.